Good afternoon. Welcome to my channel, Canning with Kate. I am Kate, and I am so happy that you are here to join me today. I am going to be showing you how to can blueberry jam with no sugar. There's also an option for low sugar, so if you don't really care about having no sugar in your jam, then I will tell you how to do the lower sugar option. I did get this recipe off of Mary's Nest. So she is somebody who has amazing recipes for fermented food, for breads, for canning stuff, for herbal medicines and tinctures and everything. So jump on over to her at some point and just take a look and see what she's got. So I'm going to be using the basic recipe. She does a recipe for low sugar or no sugar strawberry jam. I'm going to be, instead of using strawberries, I'm going to use blueberries. I've already canned some peach jam today that is working with that recipe, so it's a fantastic recipe, very versatile for different types of fruits. So let's go ahead and get started. What you are going to need today is a kind of a tall bottomed heavy pot to be stirring and boiling your jam in. Then you are also going to need 1 cup of water, 4 cups of crushed blueberries if you're doing the blueberry jam with me, and then you're going to need a low sugar or no sugar added pectin. So this pectin is the one that I am using. It comes from Ball and I love it. You can also get, this is like a bulk, so I can just get this and it's like 3 or 4 batches of jam in this little jar. Or you can get one that comes in already pre-measured pouches. I think it's from Sure-Gel. Just look for the low sugar or no sugar added pectin. So either one is totally fine. For this, you're going to need 4.5 tablespoons to add to your jam. And then I am also going to be adding stevia, pure stevia. So I'm just going to be using a very small amount of that to sweeten up my jam, but that goes in at the very end because I don't want it to like burn or become bitter or anything like that. So I just add that to the very end. Mine is in a powder, but I know that you can find liquid stevia, and that's also fine to use. I've used that before. The last thing is to get just a small little, like a salad plate, and put this in the freezer. Putting this in the freezer will help you to check the gel or the jamminess of your jelly or jam before you go ahead and start jarring it up. So I'm going to put this in the freezer so it's nice and cold, and then after we're done cooking it, I will show you how to do the checking. Okay, so here is my crushed blueberries. I did use frozen blueberries, so if that's what you have on hand, you can totally use frozen fruit. I just thawed it and then smushed it. Now for my jam, I prefer a more chunky consistency. So my jam is not going to be completely pureed smooth, but if you prefer a smoother consistency, feel free to make it as smooth as you want. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and turn this on to about medium-low, or a little bit lower than that. And I'm gonna go get my water and put the water in. I have to rinse out my cup. Okay, so now I have my 1 cup of water. I'm gonna go ahead and put that in. And now because I did use frozen fruit, this is still a little bit frozen, so it may take a little bit longer for this to cook, but that's okay. Now, one thing I did learn through my jam making process was in the very beginning when I was making jam, I would crank up that heat really high pretty quickly in the process. And that was just because I thought, well, you know, if it comes to boil faster, that'll make it done faster. And what I have just learned recently is that if you go ahead and start it slow, like at a lower temperature, it will still heat up because of all that natural sugar in it. It's gonna get hot pretty quickly. So just start it off low. Like I have it just a little bit less than medium low. And if you do it that way, and do it at a slow, steady heat, then it will come to a boil. And once it hits a hard, heavy boil, you boil it for 1 more minute after that, then turn off the heat, do the test with the cold plate, and it's gelled every single time. But prior to that, when I was doing it quickly, then it took a very long time to actually come to a gel. All right, so just make sure that you have it on low and slow, and just be a little bit patient. It's honestly, it's not going to take very long. It takes probably about 15 minutes for me on average, so it's not that bad. All right, so while it's heating up, you're going to go ahead and put your 4.5 tablespoons of no sugar added pectin. And I prefer to just kind of sprinkle it in there because I don't want it to clump. Now, it's not going to be a giant problem if it does clump. I just think it's easier to stir it in that way. So I just add 1 tablespoon or my 1/2 tablespoon. I stir it, make sure it's all blended, all mixed in. Then I add my next one. Make sure you don't lose count. It's very easy to lose count on this. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and mix that next tablespoon. So this is number 2.5. Mix it. And you can actually feel it as you're mixing it. You can feel it getting thicker, which is what you want. Okay, here's 3.5. I am probably, after I get my last tablespoon, I am probably going to be increasing the heat just a little bit. All right, my last tablespoon. Increasing it now to medium low. this is already looking really, really good. So you need to get it to come to a boil. Once it starts to boil, you keep stirring. This is something that you kind of have to babysit because it can burn very easily if you're not constantly stirring. So what you want to do is just keep stirring it, and as it comes to boil, it's just going to be a little bit more that you're going to stir it. You want it to get to that hard boil where you just cannot stir it down. So even after you're stirring, it's still boiling. That's called the hard boil. That's what you want. So once it reaches that point and you can't stir the boiling down and it doesn't stop, that's when you set your timer for 1 minute. And so you reach it to that hard boil point, you go 1 more minute, and then you can turn off your heat and do the plate test. All right, so once it reaches this hard boil, I will show you what that looks like, and then we'll do the test and get it jarred up. All right, I'll see you in a second. All right, we are back, and it is just starting to come to a boil. So this did take a lot longer, probably twice as long, because I started with frozen fruit. So there is definitely something to be said for starting with fresh fruit instead of frozen, but if you don't mind a little bit longer time, then frozen is a good way to go as well. Because sometimes you can't find the particular fruit that you want, but you can find it frozen. So, or maybe you want like a mixed berry jam, or you know, something a little bit different. Then it's always nice to have that in the freezer, and then you can just thaw it and smash it and make your jam with it. All right, so this is at the stage where it is boiling. Let's see if you can see it. See, it's clearly not quite ready because I can stir it down and the bubbling stops and the boiling stops. So this is not quite ready, but it shouldn't be too much longer before it comes to that hard boil. So making jam does take patience, but in my opinion, it is so worth it. All of my kids have just come to really, really prefer the homemade jam and jellies over the store-bought, which is totally fine with me. I would much prefer to be able to be the one who is making sure that what goes into their bodies is healthy and is not going to you know, have any ill effects like food dyes or too much sugar or, you know, all the extra stuff. There's just a whole mess of things that people put into our foods now. So that's why I really like to make my own, and making it shelf stable just means that it's that much easier to grab it off the shelf when we run out of jam, and the kids kind of have their own grocery store down there because they get to choose what jam they want that day. So it's great. Now I know that you can make this stuff without pectin, so if you don't have pectin, I know that you can make jam without it. I have not done that yet because I do have the no sugar pectin. I do know that you need to boil it down quite a bit more because you're not going to have that help with the pectin for making it thick. But that is an option. I don't know how to do it. I've never done it before, but I know that you can certainly find recipes, and I'm sure that you can find YouTube videos of people who can show you how to do it with no pectin at all. All right, this is probably going to take 2 or 3 more minutes, so when it is there, then I will bring you back and show you what that looks like, and we'll do the test. Okay, so it has finally come to a hard boil, and as you can see, when I stir it, it is not stopping. So I just set the timer for 1 minute. So we're going to stir this constantly for 1 minute. And then once it is a minute, we will go ahead and turn off the heat and we'll do the plate test. Okay, so the timer beeped. So I took the plate out of the freezer so it's nice and cold. And I'm simply going to scoop up some of the jam, just like that, on the plate. And let it sit for like 30 seconds, okay? Just so it cools off, and when you run your finger through it, you're not gonna burn your skin. So we'll leave this here for a minute, and if it is properly gelled, or if it properly sets, then I will go ahead and add in my sweetener, okay? All right, so taking a clean finger, you're just going to scoop it. That's good. Okay, that probably wasn't very professional, but you can see that the jelly did not come back together. You can see it is still separated. So that means that it is at the proper time where we can go ahead and take it off the heat and start jarring it up. Just needs a tiny bit, not very much sweetener at all. It's very, very sweet already. With my peaches, I had to add 2 tiny little, I call it like a dunk spoon. It's like, I think 1/32 of a teaspoon. So I added 2 of those because my peaches were a little bit sour. They were all right, but they weren't like overly sweet. So you just have to kind of taste test it and decide for yourself. All right, I'm bringing this over and I'll take you along. Okay, so I have my jars all ready. These are my peach jam that I already did this morning, using the same recipe. So you can see that the recipe is fairly simple to modify, which is what I love because I need simple. All right. This is going to get a little bit messy. Now you fill your jars up to 1/4 inch headspace. Right. Now I'm going to be using my steam canner for this. For steam canning, we add an extra 5 minutes to the cook time, but in general, if you're going to do water bath canning, it is just a 10-minute process. So you would only boil your jars for 10 minutes, which is fantastic because so many other recipes you have to do like a 90-minute process or 75-minute process. It's nice when you do things that don't require that kind of time. if you do not get a full jar, because it's very important to make sure that you fill your jars to the appropriate headspace, otherwise they may not seal properly. So in this case, I don't think I'm going to get another jar. So this just means that I can fill it in whatever jar I have and just stick it in the fridge, and it's totally fine. It's just not shelf stable. So you are just going to use it. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and get this towel wet with hot water and wipe down my rings, and then put the rings on. This bowl is still very hot. Okay, now these jars are going to be super, super, super hot because they had boiling jam poured in them. So please be careful when you are touching them. I have absolutely burned myself on these, and it's not fun. It's very important to make sure that you get these all the way wiped down, because you don't want any sticky jam in between your lid and the rim of your jars. So if you have to go over them a couple times, it's better to do so, and make sure that you get a good seal. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and put my lids on and my ring. Now only fingertip tight, so you go until it starts to have resistance, and then you just go a little bit longer, just a tiny bit, not much, because you do not want to over tighten these because they will not seal properly. It takes some practice, but you will get used to it, and then it's easy peasy. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put these 4 jars into my canner. I'm going to steam can these for 10 minutes, and then I'm going to leave the lid on for 5 minutes after my time has run out, and then after that I just remove the lid and take out the jars. Alright, and then once you are done,
doing a great job,
you will get a nice jar of jam that looks like this. Alright, so remember, once you take them out, you need to just leave them undisturbed for 12 to 24 hours. These do look like they have sealed, but I still don't want to mess with them because that seal could possibly come undone, and then there's no resealing it until you reprocess it. So that's why it's very important to just let it sit for 12 to 24 hours. Alright, and so after this, I will have 4 more half pints or 4 more jelly jars of blueberry jam. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope that you enjoyed this. Like, subscribe, share my channel, share my video, and I will meet you here again next time. Bye.